Today's video might be a little controversial. We are talking about resolution, 1080p versus 4K. I'm also going to go over 6K footage with you today. I'm going to show you some samples of this video footage, and then we'll also dive into the resolution decisions that I make when it comes to creating videos. Fair warning, if you're going to post a video to YouTube in 2025 using 1080p as your resolution, you're probably going to hear about it in your comments, especially if you are talking about tech like I do on this channel. Now, even though 1080p gets a bad rap, there are certain times when I use that resolution. I also film in 4K and 6K depending on the situation. So in today's video, I'm going to go through each of the scenarios when I choose to use what resolution, the reasoning behind it, and you're also going to see some video samples so that hopefully by the end of this video, you're armed with all the information that you need to make those resolution decisions. So let's go ahead and take a look at some test footage. I'm going to use the Sony a7R5 for this test. And the reason why is because this camera can film in 1080, 4K, and 8K. Here is a video sample of 1080. And now you're looking at a video sample of 4K. And finally, this is what 8K footage looks like coming out of the Sony a7R5. For today's video, I'm using a 4K timeline. So although I'm using different resolution types, I am using a 4K timeline, and I'll dive into that decision a little later on in the video. But first of all, let's talk about resolution. Resolution decisions are important because people are watching videos like these YouTube videos on all different types of screen sizes, all the way from their phone, a very small size screen, all the way up into 80 plus inch televisions that are on the wall in their living room. So at the end of the day, the consumer really wants to see a higher quality video. From a camera consumer standpoint, I think that these camera manufacturers are doing such a good job at marketing resolution to us. So what this means on the photographer side is that if you want to purchase a camera, you're going to want something with higher megapixels. The higher megapixels that are available, the cleaner and clearer your images. And then on the video side, well, that's resolution. So 1080p has a lower quality, let's say, than 4K or 6K. So we do have the end consumer that we want to keep in mind. And then also these camera companies are putting out cameras that do give us higher resolution and higher quality. But the truth is that you don't always need to be shooting in that higher resolution like 4K or 6K. So let's break this down. When I am planning for a video shoot, what I do instantly is think about who am I shooting this video for? And I'm not talking about my client. I'm talking about the end user. Who is going to be watching this video and where are they going to be watching this video? Not only am I thinking about the screen size that they're going to be watching on, but I'm also thinking about either the software platform that they're going to be viewing this video on, and even above and beyond that, is there any hardware that is in between the video and the end consumer? And an example of that is if you are live streaming. So let's start off by taking a close look at a video that I'm watching here in YouTube. If you go down to the bottom, you can select this drop down and you can actually select the resolution that you want to watch your video in. Now, the higher the resolution, the clearer the footage is going to be. And you'll notice that your options are decreased based on the resolution that was used by the person shooting and editing the video. So if you shot a video in 1080p, you're only going to be able to choose 1080p from the drop down. If you shot your video in 8K, then you might have additional resolution options available to you. But the thing is that most people, when they log on to YouTube, this is a default setting. So YouTube is going to make resolution decisions for you. And in many cases, people don't know that they can switch to a higher resolution. So this is a prime example of software limitations. YouTube is going to make these decisions for you. So are platforms like Facebook, and Instagram, even LinkedIn. Just because you're shooting in 6K and editing and uploading a 6K video doesn't mean that the end user is actually going to be able to watch the video in that high of a resolution. So software and platforms aren't the only limitations that you should consider when you're trying to choose the type of resolution that you want to use when you shoot your video. So if you're live streaming or doing conference calls or using some type of hardware to project a video signal out to the internet, well, you're probably going to be limited by that hardware. So I use the Rodecaster Video to do live streaming. I also use the A10 Mini Pro ISO. And these types of consumer hardware devices also limit the resolution that you're able to use. So if I have my camera set in 4K, for instance, and I'm live streaming using my Rodecaster Video, the Rodecaster Video will accept a 4K signal from my camera, but when it sends out the live stream, it's only going to do so using 1080p. This is a hardware limitation that these manufacturers put on these types of devices. In addition to that live stream signal that's being sent out, you're also limited to the resolution that you can record in. So these two devices, the Rodecaster Video, for example, and also the A10 Mini Pro ISO, you can capture video and audio. You can record files using an external SSD, and here you're also limited. So I can be recording using 4K, but because that signal is being processed by these devices, they're capping the resolution at 1080. So at the end of the day, I can only work using 1080 files anyways. So these are just a few examples of how software, hardware, and even your internet connection can define the type of resolution that you have to go with anyway. So at the end of the day, if the result is going to be 1080p, then that is going to impact the decision that I make when I'm setting the resolution on my camera. Now, there are some workarounds. You can record in 4K and send a 1080p signal out, for example, over a live stream. And at the end of the day, you will have the 4K footage because you capture that in camera. But if the only output and the only video you're going to use is that 1080p output, well, then you may as well just set your camera in 1080p and then you're all set because that resolution isn't going to change. Other times that I shoot in 1080p because I'm aware of the limitations that are put in place by social media platforms is if I'm shooting reels or stories, or if I'm doing video just for social media content, well, I'm probably just going to shoot in 1080p. And although I've already mentioned it, if I'm ever live streaming an event or a video podcast, well, most of the time I just have my camera set in 1080p anyways, because that signal is limited by the hardware and or software I'm using. Also, if I'm shooting really, really long videos like podcast interviews, if I shoot those interviews in 4K or 6K, well, I'm going to be limited by the amount of memory on my memory cards. And also, when I take those files out, I upload them to my computer and I go to edit. And editing files that are 2 and 3 hours in length in 4K or 6K is definitely a detriment. It means that you have to have a better laptop or a computer to be able to process those video files. So that is another example of when I'm just going to shoot in 1080p and call it a day. The other thing to consider when shooting in 1080 is that you don't have a lot of flexibility in the edit. This means that if you want to zoom in, let's say, in your video, that video quality is going to decrease if you're in 1080. Shooting in 4K and 6K is going to give you more flexibility in the edit. You can zoom in a little bit more without losing that video quality. So in this case, if I'm shooting in 1080, I'm just going to make sure that I have my subject framed exactly how, or very close to how I want to see it in the edit. And then if I am in a situation where I feel like I need some more flexibility, then I'm definitely going to shoot in 4K. If you remember back to the beginning of the video, when I was sharing my different resolution samples, I shot in 1080, 4K, and 6K. However, I am using a 4K timeline. So this is a little trick I use when it comes to uploading videos, especially to YouTube. If you shoot in 1080, and you edit in a 4K timeline, when you export that video and you upload it to YouTube, you're kind of tricking them. They're going to process a 4K video file a little different than they're going to process a 1080 video file. So I found that the resolution is a little higher if you do it this way. And then also it's going to show up, the 4K option is going to show up when you are selecting to view a video on YouTube, and it's going to make it look like you shot your video in 4K. So this is a little trick that I use when it comes to using 1080p footage. Now, as far as 4K and 6K footage, even though I am editing in a 4K timeline, some people will argue that using 6K footage in a 4K timeline is going to make that quality look a little better, a little nicer. That's still up for debate. I personally haven't really seen that happen. YouTube is still going to process these videos how they process them. And at the end of the day, keep in mind, it's really dependent on the end user's internet quality and whether or not they can even stream a 4K or a 6K video effectively. So just keep those little nuances in mind when you are making those resolution decisions. For most of the projects I work on, because I'm working with clients, they request that their footage be shot in 4K. So I do shoot in 4K most of the time, unless I'm in those situations where I know that the end user can only view up to 1080p resolution. So that means if I'm live streaming or if I'm doing some sort of a conference call with a client, if I'm shooting long videos like video podcasts that are 2 and 3 hours in duration, lots of times I'll just shoot in 1080p because those file sizes are so gigantic. It really depends on the budget that my client has to work with. Those larger size files do take more time to process and edit. So, I do charge those clients a little bit more than I would if I'm shooting in 1080, just so that I am decreasing the amount of time that I spend on the edit. And then on the rare occasion that I show up to a video shoot, and if you shoot videos for clients, you might have found yourself in a similar situation. You think you've planned enough and you have all the gear you need to complete the shoot, but sometimes I've been in a situation where I just don't have enough memory on hand to be able to shoot 4K footage for as long as the client wants. So in some cases, I have shot in 1080 just to give myself some more memory, and then I can just handle that in the edit in post, as I've described when I do use a 4K timeline in my edit. So as you can see, there are lots of things to consider when it comes to resolution, but at the end of the day, we could probably all get away with just using 1080p in most of the projects that we work on. It is fun to shoot in 4K and 6K, again, because I think that tech is available to us as consumers at a pretty affordable cost. So either way, hopefully you're armed with a little more knowledge so that you can make better decisions about whatever resolution you choose to shoot in. If you would like to add anything about the resolution decisions you make, please do so in the comments below. Thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll see you again in the next video.